It's not single-use plastic that she's using, you know what I'm saying? Cool! We can't put that in! What's the deal? It's a question that many people from other generations have asked the young people of Singapore. Well, today, we're going to try and answer them. What's the Deal is an initiative by the National Youth Council as part of the Youth Action Challenge Summit. Yes, Mum and Dad, I'm still a youth. We have amassed a bunch of young people. We got them to ask questions. They're burning questions for the road ahead. Questions like, how do I convince my parents that climate change is real? When is it a good time to leave university? And of course, the golden term of our pandemic era, how do we pivot? Pivot! We're going to answer all these questions and more right now. For now, we're going to focus on the environment, and we've got Seng, who is the founder of Green Nudge. It's a social enterprise that you work with companies and event organizations to achieve a zero waste outcome, correct?
That's right.
Wonderful. I want to ask you straight off the bat, big question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how environmentally conscious are Singaporeans? And be honest.
Okay, so I think that's a very good question to start off with. I think from 1 to 10, I would think we are currently at a 4.
You're being too nice.
3.
Nice. 3?
Yeah, I would say it's about 3, I must say.
Nice.
Okay, honestly.
And this is me not sipping on a plastic straw right now.
And that's a 1. That's a 1.
Yeah, that'll be a 1. Okay. Tell us why that's so. Why do you give us a 3 rating?
I think we have really progressed quite a fair bit. It's really, I mean, if I were to look from 20 years ago, we would say that we're probably not in a very good shape. But right now, with the infrastructure in place, I think there's a lot more that has taken place for now. So I can't be that bad and say it's a 0 here right now over here. Yeah. But what has been useful is that the policies are coming along in terms of shaping from the ministry, from a top-down approach. That has been really, really useful. However, I think what now needs to be supported, right, is really from the community, from the people as well. We can be demanding for change. We can be asking for more things to take place as well. But I think there is also a need for change from the behavioural side of things, of us taking the action and doing what you're supposed to be doing collectively as a group in order to make that change happen as well. So I would say, yeah, we are at 3 for now.
No, I mean, that's not good. Well, we should be better, but good to know. Okay, so talking about community, one of the things that we always talk about, the first frontier, right, of environmental change, plastic straws. Stop using plastic straws. You hear this all the time. But the question is, and we also see this as well on social media, skipping the plastic straws, does it actually make a difference at all? What are your thoughts?
Well, I must say, plastic straws are one of those things that we see day in, day out. I mean, everyone will probably be using them very, very often.
Yep.
So it is very easy to start the conversation with plastic straws. In the grand scheme of things, it's probably one of those many things that would come and affect the environment. Right. But from a physical waste kind of point of view, it's probably not that impactful, but it's one of the easiest ways to start off with reducing plastic straw in terms of not even using it. And if you have to use it, for instance, for certain individuals who have to use it, you can also always choose a more environmentally friendly option, let's say a silicone one, or a metal straw, or a bamboo straw as well. And actually, I would say from a behavioral point of view, if you're going to buy a metal straw right from the start, you're going to use it, you're probably going to lose it as well. And so if you're going to really be embarking on a zero waste journey with a straw, start with something that is slightly cheaper.
Yes.
And even if you were to lose it, let's say a bamboo straw, would still be, it's
affordable.
It's affordable, it could still be environmentally friendly because it can still degrade on its own. And then when you have the habit, move on to, let's say, a metal straw instead.
As opposed to collecting 100 metal straws in my drawer just because I...
That's right.
Right. Okay, on that note, I want to ask you as well, there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to living a zero waste outcome or lifestyle. One of them, yes, being, is it more expensive? And the other, of course, is, can I still eat meat? I want to get your thoughts on that. So first of all, let's talk about the cost, right? Is it more expensive to lead an environmentally conscious lifestyle?
I must admit, I think for many people, it does seem quite daunting at the start to say that, oh, if I have to lead a zero waste lifestyle or in order to be more environmentally friendly, I have to fork out so much more to get a straw, to get my own utensils and cutleries and things like that. It can possibly be a little bit more expensive at the start, but I would think that it will actually, across a longer period of time, if you don't lose your straw, it's actually going to be a lot more affordable. It's going to be a lot more environment friendly, and net value wise, I think it's definitely beneficial for ourselves as well as for the environment here.
But that's also, I guess, from like a behavioral standpoint, right? Like that's every single person, every individual's responsibility. But also, I guess maybe from speaking from a community standpoint, from a national standpoint, do you feel like maybe it's a tipping point? People just need to get to that point of awareness. Then once there's a critical mass, everything becomes more affordable.
All these items definitely need to reach a critical mass before it makes sense or makes economic sense to do so. Right now we have the technology in terms of recycling items. We can actually collect plastics, turn it into recycled plastics once more, and then use them as 3D printing filaments. However, I mean that's very useful when you're going to print out things like your mask, that filament that the holding behind you, or even possibly even new straws in time to come as well.
Girlfriends, boyfriends, loneliness, posters.
Possible as well. And
that's environmentally important, but sure. Yes.
Yeah. It takes time and it needs a market as well. If you're going to be only churning out 100 kg of recycled plastics every month, that's not going to help the industry. The industry is not going to buy it. No one's going to buy it as well. It's going to be very expensive. So definitely, it needs to be a collective effort. And it's probably not just in Singapore as well. It probably needs to go beyond that in collecting that mass of people who will be saying that, yeah, I'm happy to step on board. And when it happens, you'll see that the cost goes down, businesses are willing to take on board, communities would then be happy to move along as well.
It's a trickle-down effect.
It is
to happen. That's good. Let's approach that tipping point. I want to talk about the meat thing, all right? Because I love meat, but I also know the atrocities that come with consuming meat on the environment. Does it mean that we all eventually have to become vegan?
It doesn't have to be a binary thing, you know. It doesn't mean that you have to eat meat one day and the next day you don't have to eat, or you cannot eat meat as well. I think it's very cultural and it's very habitual for us to say that we would love our meat even though we have all these facts and all these figures coming to us and saying that it's not great. While it is true in a sense, facts to suggest that it takes a lot more to grow or to rear a cow or chicken and then to consume and process them as well. I think it can start from the fact that if you acknowledge that, hey, it's actually healthier, it could be cheaper as well, and then we can take it one step at a time. Do it once every month for a start, then do it once a week for a start, and then continue that frequency until you are comfortable to where we are. But it doesn't mean you have to completely eliminate meat as well. I mean, yeah.
I guess from your perspective, you'd be the best person to shed some light on this. Let's talk about Singapore as a whole, the infrastructures in and around it. Are we ready for climate change? What are your thoughts on that?
I must say that Singapore internally, I think we are preparing ourselves for what I would consider an inevitable rise in global temperature, as well as how it affects us in Singapore in terms of a rise in global temperature would be the rise in sea level. Really means that our places like the parks, the beaches, they may not necessarily be around or they might change over the next 50 to 100 years. And I think that's going to be an inevitable change. So it's great that we are making processes, policies right now to take that into account. But it doesn't mean that we can't quite stop that process from even moving before that change happens as well. So if we are going to be facing the inevitable part of climate rising of sea levels, why can't we take a change before that itself and try and reduce that impact before it even starts?
Is this something that needs to be solved on an executive level, obviously like a policy level?
I think it needs help from all levels, and in this case, I mean, obviously the best way to look at it will be through policies, but policies take time. I think it will take definitely years or even decades to even move things along. And you're talking about not just Singapore in this case, you're talking about the whole world. The next best thing to do is convince businesses. Businesses move things, and businesses are the ones who sell us the products as well, or the services. And I think it's useful for us to convince businesses that, hey, there is a part to play here, and that consumers, we ourselves also want things to be a lot more sustainable as well. How can we reduce your operations in a sustainable way, promoting still growth as well, but to allow that to allow the impact of climate change to take place much slower.
What are your thoughts on Greta Thunberg?
She's very active and very activist by nature as well. There are a lot of very similar individuals in Singapore that's coming out on this as well, and I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's great that we're going to have a lot of people who don't mind speaking out, and I think that's the fact. The thing is that my background used to be in the public sector as well, and I think where we try to understand how the ground sentiment is we really try to understand what people are saying, what they're hearing, before you can even make change. And if that's the case, voicing out your thoughts about what is great and what is not helps to shift that policy-making part much more.
I want to ask as well on that note, like how effective is an entity of a singular person like a Greta Thunberg who might be buoyed by the advent of social media? How impactful is that on policy making at large, especially with, I guess, private sectors and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, just from Greta alone, you can see that she has managed to rally so many other people, not just in her country, but around the world as well. They themselves start to speak with the businesses, the communities, and convince their own parents, their leaders as well, in saying like, hey, it's time to make a change. As to what kind of direction, what kind of a momentum are we looking at, it's still a question mark here. But the fact that she alone managed to just nudge people, but rallied the rest, that's incredible.
I want to argue that it's not just enough for us to, make small little changes in our own daily lifestyle, but it's also for us to think about the larger picture as well, to see what we can do to impact our communities, what kind of voice we can give to make more like impactful change in these kind of areas, just like what Greta's doing as well. So at least I guess that's what. Would you say that's true as well? Like we need to think larger.
I think it is. The fact is that this impact of the environment is going to affect us. It has been affecting our parents, it will affect us, and it will affect our future as well.
Yeah.
And I think we have to take a long-term view about this, that we can't just be saying like, just because we are reducing straws on we're going to save the world. It's not going to happen.
It's not a checklist, right? It's not like, hey,
It's not going to be that case. We probably have to think much further ahead. Even when we're not around, this problem still exists. How can we still consistently tackle that problem and to grow on the momentum as compared to starting from ground zero once more?
You raised this point just now, actually, off camera. You're talking about taking responsibility for the things around you. It's very easy to go like, oh, that's not my business because it doesn't affect my immediate life. But we're kind of all in this together, right? And we should also shoulder that responsibility.
Yeah, I think it's easy for us to say no, just because I didn't buy that drink, or I didn't throw that letter on the ground, or we didn't just purchase the catered food. It's not my issue. I think it's useful to just voice it out and say that, hey, I would prefer something a lot more environmentally friendly, and I'll prefer something that's a lot more sustainable. And I think if we make our views known more frequently as well, I think things will start to change as well. People will start to know us as the weirdo who prefers not to have all this waste. It will gradually shift towards, hey, actually, I don't mind joining that person in becoming a bit more sustainable as well.
Let's talk about this. Some people still don't believe that climate change is a thing. And we're finding that more often than not, it's a conversation between parents and children. The question is, and this comes from a poll that we did with youths, how can we convince our parents that climate change is real? What happens when you encounter someone who just does not believe this is a real thing?
Wow. I think there's so many layers to this, and I think it's easier to start from ourselves first. If we really feel that if we genuinely feel that it is real and it impacts us, then we act it out. Meaning to say, we bring our own items if we can. We share our stories with others as well, as much as possible. One easy way to convince our parents is the fact that Singapore is getting hotter, getting wetter as well. And it's unfortunately due to the fact that our global temperature is rising. I mean, our parents will probably know a little bit better as well in terms of how the weather was like in the past and how it has changed more erratic in the last few years. And unfortunately, that is one of the reasons why, that's one of the causes of climate change in terms of bringing up the global temperature.
Yep.
And if we need to turn on the aircon more and we need to pay more aircon bills, then our parents might want to consider supporting us in this.
That's true. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I must admit that it's so encouraging to see people lead by example. I think one of the most encouraging sights is seeing a lot of Gen Zs, young people, taken upon the mantle of social causes, especially environmentally conscious causes, trying to push for zero waste outcomes. And they're leading not just on Twitter, but by example as well. They're getting their straws in, they're reducing single-use plastics every way they can, and they're calling out bad habits as well. Do you think this is something that I guess all generations can learn from, especially young people?
Well, I think there definitely need to be a move towards that. And I think the point here we're trying to say here is that we're not trying to aim for a zero-sum game. It doesn't mean that we're going to ban plastics or we're going to call to have no meat at all. I think what's important here is to be mindful that we are currently at the age of consuming excessively. It just means that we're buying more than what we need. It means that we're just taking up more than what we really need to consume as well. And if we can start by cutting down from this excess, it's a great start.
It's difficult for Singaporeans to, I guess, regress. It's like this whole flowers of Algernon theory we really struggle with once we're given a luxury and go like, we take it away. How can? It's mine, what? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just a concept. But if I can share, like this is beautiful Swedish concept that I learned recently. It's a Swedish word that is actually indigenous to the culture. and it's called Lao Gong. And it translates to the idea of perfect simple, even keel, nothing too high, nothing too low, which is, the Swedish lifestyle if you think about how they, turning legs and they're just like, oh yes, everything's perfect, and I think maybe it's just something that we can learn as well. Like what you said as well, like taking what we need, taking the essentials, and just being more mindful about the environment and the world that we're given. Any last thoughts? Any last pieces of advice for youth out there who want to make a change?
I think you just made a very good point here. Essential. It just really means less but better, and the fact that you don't have to really get a lot, make sure that they're good quality, and then it's really you can still enjoy a good quality of life without buying more or excessively.
That's why you're the boss, man. Less but better. I couldn't even say it better myself. Less but better. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
We're sanitized, don't worry.